Wednesday evening, 6:43 p.m. I was in the kitchen, cutting vegetables. The television was off. The house was quiet in this specific way it gets quiet when children are absorbed in something. Not the silence of absence, but the busy silence of imagination at work. My daughter, Wren, was in the living room, playing house with the boy next door, 6 years old and 7 years old, completely in their own world. I could see them through the kitchen doorway. Wren was the mother, Eli was the father. I smiled. And then Eli reached over and took Wren's hand, and he said, "Don't tell my wife, but you're my secret girlfriend. I got you this necklace." He held out a plastic toy. Wren giggled. She took it. She said, "Okay, sweetheart, let's meet again when she's at work." I set down the knife, very slowly. I walked to the doorway. I looked at my daughter, at the boy next door, and I said, "Where did you learn that game?" Wren looked up at me. She said, "From Daddy and Sarah Auntie. They were playing it in the living room last week." My name is Nora Bancroft. I am 34 years old, and the most honest people in my house are 6 and 7 years old. My name is Nora Bancroft. I am 34 years old. I grew up in a small city called Waco, 3 hours south of where I live now, in the specific Texas landscape that is neither the hill country nor the plains, but something between them, cedar and limestone, and a river that in summer smells like childhood. My parents were practical people. My father worked in insurance. My mother taught elementary school for 27 years and had, in those 27 years, developed the specific quality of someone who has spent decades listening carefully to children and understanding that what they say and what they mean are not always the same thing, but are always worth taking seriously. I inherited that quality. I have had reason recently to be grateful for it. I moved to Austin at 22 for a job in graphic design that I no longer have. I left it 6 years ago to freelance, which is the correct decision if you want to be present for your child's early years, and the difficult decision in every other sense. I have a small studio in our house. I work with 4 regular clients and occasional projects, and the specific satisfaction of work you control completely. My husband's name is Griffin Bancroft. He is 37. He works in real estate development, the kind that involves acquiring land and managing the process that turns it into something. It is a job that requires a great deal of flexibility and a great deal of time spent in the company of other people, which Griffin has never found difficult. He is the kind of person who is comfortable in almost any room. He has always been comfortable in almost any room. I understand that differently now. We married 8 years ago. Wren was born 2 years after that. She is 6 now. She is funny and specific and has the quality, I believe she got it from me, of watching things very carefully before she decides what she thinks about them. She notices, she retains, she reproduces, with the specific fidelity of a child who is a very good observer, the things she has seen. Children learn by imitation. She was imitating something she had seen, in my living room while I was elsewhere. I need to tell you about Petra. Petra Walsh is 33 years old. She has been my closest friend for 11 years, since we were both 22 and 23, and new to Austin and finding our way through the specific, overwhelming experience of a new city. We met at a graphic design networking event that neither of us wanted to be at, and bonded immediately over our mutual desire to leave and the coffee place 2 blocks away that was open late. 11 years. She has been at every significant moment of my adult life. She was at my wedding. She was in the waiting room when Wren was born. She is Wren's godmother, a fact that Wren takes seriously and that Petra takes equally seriously, and that has produced, over 6 years, a relationship between a godmother and a goddaughter that I have always found genuinely moving. Wren calls her Auntie P, not Sarah. Petra is not Sarah. I want to be clear about that, because when the children said Sarah Auntie, I understood immediately who they meant, and it was not Petra. Sarah Kellner is 36 years old. She had entered our lives 2 years ago, a business associate of Griffin's who had become gradually, and without my fully noticing the transition, a regular presence in our social world. She had been at dinners. She had been at the neighborhood gathering last fall. She had been on a handful of occasions at our house. She is blonde. She has an easy laugh. She is the kind of person who is comfortable in almost any room. I noticed when I met her that she and Griffin had the specific ease of people who know each other well. He had described it as a professional ease, the ease of people who have worked closely together and developed a comfortable shorthand. I had believed that. In the kitchen, setting down my knife at 6:43 on a Wednesday evening, I thought about that ease, and I understood it differently. I crouched down in the doorway. Wren and Eli looked at me. They were not embarrassed. They had not been doing anything wrong from their perspective. They had been playing a game they had seen adults play, the way children play the games they observe. They had been faithful to the source material. "That game you were playing," I said carefully, "can you tell me more about when you saw Daddy and Sarah Auntie playing it?" Wren looked at Eli. Eli looked at Wren. The specific consultation of two children who are deciding how much to say. "It was last Wednesday," Wren said, "when you went to your meeting. I had a client meeting last Wednesday afternoon, 3 hours. I had left at 2 and returned at 5:15. Eli came over to play," Wren continued, "and Sarah Auntie was here and they were in the living room and I went to get my book from the couch and they were talking and—" She stopped. "And what?" I said, very gently, the voice my mother used in the classroom for 30 years. "And Daddy said the thing about the secret girlfriend, and he gave her something, a real necklace, not a toy one, and she said the thing about meeting again." "And then?" I said. "And then they saw me," Wren said, "and Daddy said I shouldn't talk about it because it was a surprise for you, that he was getting you a present, and Sarah Auntie was helping. A surprise for me. A necklace. A real one, not a toy one." I looked at my daughter. "Thank you for telling me, sweetheart. That was the right thing to do." Wren nodded seriously. "Can we keep playing?" she said. "Of course," I said. I stood up. I went back to the kitchen. I picked up the knife. I finished cutting the vegetables. Griffin came home at 7:15. He came through the door the way he always came through the door. Keys on the hook, shoes off, a general unwinding from the day that I had watched hundreds of times, and that had always felt like the particular comfort of a person settling into their home. He greeted Wren. He said hello to Eli, who was still there. He came to the kitchen. He kissed the top of my head. "Smells good," he said. "Thank you," I said. We had dinner. All 4 of us. Eli stayed because his mother texted that she was running late and could Eli eat with us, which happened regularly and was always fine. Griffin talked about his day. I listened. Wren told a long story about something that had happened at school involving a disagreement about a jump rope that had been mediated by a teacher and resolved satisfactorily. Eli ate 2 servings. I watched Griffin across the table. I watched him the way I watch things when I am trying to understand them, with the specific attention that my mother gave to children in her classroom, that I give to design problems, that I had apparently not been giving to my marriage. He was entirely himself, easy, present, warm. He did not know that anything had changed. I said nothing. I served dessert. I helped Eli with his jacket when his mother came. I put Wren to bed. I read her the story she chose. I turned off the light, and I went downstairs, and I sat at my desk in my studio, and I opened a document and started writing things down. The document had a date at the top. Wednesday, the current day. I wrote down everything Wren had said, her exact words, as precisely as I could recall them, the time, the context, the detail about the necklace, real, not a toy. I wrote down the Wednesday 2 weeks ago, my client meeting, the 3 hours I had been gone, the specific window of time during which, apparently, something had been happening in my living room. I wrote down what I knew of Sarah Kellner, 2 years of appearances, the business context, the easy laugh, the comfort in almost any room.
I wrote down what I remembered of the occasions when she had been at our house. 3 times, maybe 4, at least one of which I now understood differently. I looked at the document. It was 11:14 p.m. Griffin was upstairs. I thought about going up. I thought about what I would say if I went up, and I thought about something my mother had told me once, not about marriage, about the classroom. She had said, "When a child tells you something important, the worst thing you can do is react before you understand what you're actually dealing with. You need the full picture before you respond, because your response shapes everything that comes after." I needed the full picture. I did not yet have it. I closed the document. I went to bed. I lay beside Griffin in the dark, and I thought about what I needed to know and in what order and what I was going to do with it. Thursday morning. Griffin left at 8. Wren went to school at 8:30. I dropped her off and drove back home and sat at my desk with the document open and got very carefully about what I was doing. I am a graphic designer. My work is the organization of information into a form that communicates something clearly. I look at complexity and find the essential structure underneath it. I make things legible. I applied this to my marriage. What I had: a child's account of a specific event, direct quotation as best I could reconstruct, a detail, the necklace, that was specific enough to be verifiable, a date, last Wednesday, that corresponded to a documented absence on my part. What I needed: corroboration of the child's account, understanding of the scale and duration, the full picture that my mother had taught me to wait for before responding. What I had available to me: my own access to the shared financial accounts, the specific knowledge of a woman who has been married for 8 years and knows the patterns of a shared life well enough to notice when something doesn't fit the pattern. I opened the banking app. I looked at the last 3 months of transactions. I was looking for a necklace. I found it in February. A jewelry store charge, mid-range, not extravagant, but not nothing. The kind of amount that corresponds to something real, not a token. February was 6 weeks ago. I had not received a necklace in February. I thought about our wedding anniversary in February. Griffin had given me a book, a specific edition of something I had mentioned wanting, a thoughtful gift, the kind he was good at. Not a necklace. The necklace had gone somewhere else. I wrote down the transaction: date, amount, merchant. I went back further. 3 months of statements. I was not looking for anything specific beyond the necklace, but I was looking with the attention of someone who now had reason to look carefully. What I found? Restaurant charges I didn't recognize. Not the restaurants we went to together, different ones. Twice on Tuesdays. The specific pattern of a standing arrangement, which is different from the pattern of a one-time thing. A hotel charge in January. 1 night, downtown Austin. The kind of hotel you choose when you need to be somewhere that is not your home. I had been in Waco in January, my parents' anniversary, 3 days. Wren had come with me. Griffin had stayed. A work project, he had said. A deadline. The hotel check-in date was the 2nd night of my absence. I wrote it all down. I closed the app. I sat for a long time. Then I called Petra.
Petra answered on the first ring. "Hey, are you okay?" I had not told her anything. She simply knows my voice. "No," I said. "Can you come over?" "Leaving now," she said. She was there in 20 minutes. She came in and looked at my face and went to the kitchen and made coffee and brought it to the studio and sat down. "Tell me," she said. I told her. The game, Wren's words, the necklace detail, the document, the banking statements, January, the hotel. Petra listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, she held her coffee cup with both hands. "Sarah Kellner," she said. "Yes," I said. "How long have you known her?" 2 years, I said. She came through Griffin's work. "Have I met her?" "At the Hendersons' thing in October," I said. "You were there." Petra thought about it. "Blonde, easy laugh," she said. "Yes," I said. I noticed, Petra stopped. What? I said. At the Hendersons, Petra said, carefully. I noticed that she and Griffin were comfortable. I thought it was just professional. I almost said something to you, and then I told myself I was reading into it. You noticed in October? I said. I'm sorry, Petra said. I should have. No, I said. You weren't sure. I wouldn't have been sure either. We sat with that. What do you want to do? She asked. I want to understand the full picture, I said, before I do anything. I don't want to react to an incomplete picture. What's missing from the picture? How long, I said, and whether it's still happening, and, I paused, whether there's anything else I haven't looked at yet. What haven't you looked at? I thought about it. His phone, I said. I have never looked at his phone. I want to be honest about the decision to look at his phone. I have thought about it a lot in the months since. I did not make it lightly. What I believed then and believe now is this. A marriage is a specific kind of trust. When evidence accumulates that the trust has been broken, when a child's faithful reproduction of what she observed, combined with financial records that corroborate it, has built a picture that is difficult to interpret any other way, the question of whether to look becomes a question about what you owe to the truth versus what you owe to the privacy of someone who has been using that privacy against you. I decided what I owed to the truth. Griffin had left his phone charging on the kitchen counter. He did this every morning when he went to run, a 30-minute run, which he did at 9 on days when he was not in early meetings. He was running. I had 25 minutes. I picked up the phone. His passcode was Wren's birthday. I had known this. I opened the messages. I found what I was looking for in approximately 4 minutes, not because it was easy to find, because I knew what I was looking for. The thread was labeled with a name I did not recognize, a name that was clearly not her real name, a placeholder name, the kind of name you give a contact when you want to be able to find it quickly without it being findable by anyone else. I am a designer. I understand systems. I read the thread. I did not read all of it. I read enough to know it had been going on for 14 months. It was still happening, and the specific content of what I read, the specific way they spoke to each other in that thread, confirmed that what Wren had reproduced in the living room had been a faithful and accurate reproduction. She is an excellent observer. She always has been. I put the phone back, exactly where it had been. I went to my studio. I opened the document. I added to it. When Griffin came back from his run, I was at my desk working. He came to the doorway. He said, "Good run." I said, "Good." He went to shower. I kept working. I called an attorney that afternoon. Her name was Diana Reyes, recommended by a colleague, someone who had used her 2 years earlier and described her as the kind of person you want in your corner when something is actually serious. This was actually serious. Diana's office was on Congress Avenue. I went in on Friday morning while Wren was at school. I brought the document. I brought screenshots of the banking statements. I sat across from Diana and I laid it out. The game, Wren's words, the necklace, the hotel, the phone, 14 months. Diana listened. She did not react emotionally. She was taking notes. When she finished, she looked at her notes for a moment. Then she said, "Nora, I want to ask you something before we talk about process. You have a daughter. She is 6 years old. She observed something and reproduced it. She doesn't know what it means. How do you want to handle this so that she is protected from what comes next?" I looked at her. "That," I said, "is the only thing I've been thinking about since Wednesday evening." "Good," Diana said. "Then let's start there." I told Griffin on a Sunday. Not immediately. I had needed 10 days. 10 days to understand the full picture, to sit with Diana, to make decisions that I was certain enough about to act on without reversing them. Wren was at my mother's. My mother had come up from Waco specifically, having been told only that I needed her to have Wren for a day. My mother had asked no questions. She had arrived Saturday evening and taken Wren to her hotel, and would bring her back Sunday evening.
Griffin and I were alone in the house for the first time, I realized, in a very long time. I made coffee. We sat at the kitchen table. "Griffin," I said, "I know about Sarah." He was very still. He had been holding his coffee cup, and it remained in both hands, held in the specific stillness of someone who has just understood that a door is open they did not know was open. "Nora, I know about the hotel in January," I said. "I know the necklace. I know the thread on your phone. I know it's been 14 months. The color of his face changed. "How?" I said. "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that I know." He put the cup down. He looked at the table. "I want to explain." "You can, but I want to tell you something first." He looked up. "Wren saw you," I said, "last Wednesday, when I was at my meeting. She came into the living room for her book. She saw you and Sarah. She heard what you said." His face. "I will not describe it in detail." "She reproduced it," I said, "in a game with Eli on Wednesday evening in the living room, while I was in the kitchen." The silence was very long. "She doesn't know what it means," I said. "She's 6. She thought she was playing house, but she is an exact observer, Griffin. She always has been. She told me every word." He put his face in his hands. "And she told me that you told her it was a surprise for me, the necklace, a surprise." He did not say anything. "She believed you," I said. "She's 6 years old, and she believed you because she trusts you completely, because you are her father." I stood up. "Diana Reyes will be in contact with your attorney. Her information is on the counter." I picked up my coffee. I went to my studio. I closed the door.
The divorce was complicated by the business connection. Not Sarah herself. That was Griffin's consequence to manage, not mine. But the specific architecture of a real estate development business, after 14 months of whatever those 14 months had been, had elements that required careful financial examination. Diana had said at our first meeting that when infidelity involves a business partner or associate, the financial picture sometimes has dimensions that are not immediately visible. She had been right. The examination, conducted by a forensic accountant named Lena Cross, who Diana worked with regularly, took 6 weeks. What Lena found was not criminal, but it was irregular. Certain business expenses over 14 months that overlapped with the personal expenditures I had documented. The hotel had been expensed partially to a client account that Diana flagged as questionable. The jewelry purchase had not been expensed, but other purchases in the same merchant category had been, in ways that Lena traced carefully through the business accounts. Her report used the word commingling. Diana's response to the report was to add it to a negotiation that had already, based on what Wren had seen and what I had documented, been moving in a direction that favored me significantly. The business commingling made it more so. Griffin hired an attorney who was, according to Diana, not going to be able to do much with this. She was right. The conversation about Wren happened in April. Not a conversation about custody specifically. The custody agreement had been agreed upon relatively quickly because neither Griffin or I was going to let Wren be used as leverage, and we both understood this. A conversation about what Wren knew, or rather what she had seen, what she had reproduced, and what at some point she would understand. Griffin asked a meeting, through Diana, which is how our communication went by then, specifically to discuss Wren. Not the divorce, not the finances. Wren. I agreed. We met at a coffee shop on South Congress. We had not been alone together since the Sunday in the kitchen. He looked smaller than I had expected. Not physically, the specific smaller of someone whose certainty about their position in the world has been revised. He said, "I need to ask you about what Wren knows, what she's been told." "She's been told," I said, "that Mommy and Daddy are better as 2 separate families, that we both love her the same amount, that nothing about that is changing." "She hasn't been told?" "No," I said. "She's 6.
What she saw, she has filed away as a game she played. She doesn't have the framework yet to understand what she actually saw. When she does, I said, she will need honest answers from both of us. I can't tell you what those answers will look like for you. I can only tell you what mine will be. Which is the truth, I said. In the version that a child her age can hold, that expands as she grows older and can hold more. I will never lie to her about what happened. He was quiet for a moment. The surprise story, he said quietly. What I told her. Yes, I said. I'm sorry, that specifically. I'm sorry I put that on her. I looked at him. I believe you. It doesn't change anything, but I believe you.
Petra and I talked about the October moment. Not immediately. It had been too close, and I had needed to do the divorce work before I had the space to address the things around it. But in June, over dinner at her apartment, we talked about it properly. She had seen something at the Henderson party. She had almost said something. She had decided she was reading into it. If you had told me, I said, I don't know what I would have done. I'm not sure I would have believed it. I'm not sure I would have looked. I should have said it anyway, she said. Let you make that decision. Yes, I said, you should have, but I also understand why you didn't. Do you? She said. Really? Yes, I said, because you loved me and you weren't sure, and you didn't want to be wrong about something that would hurt me. And that is not a bad instinct. It's just, sometimes the right thing and the kind thing are different things, and you chose the kind thing. Petra looked at her dinner. I chose the easier thing, she said. Maybe, but I'm not going to lose you over it. She looked up. I'm not, I said. You are my oldest friend. You showed up when I called you. You sat in that studio and listened. You drove me to Diana's first appointment because I didn't trust myself to drive. I'm not losing you over one moment of choosing the kind thing. Petra was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I would have told you eventually. I know, I said, but it turned out Wren told me first. Petra almost smiled. She really is an excellent observer, she said. She really is, I said. Wren asked me about the game in July. Summer. She had been at day camp and she came home one afternoon with the specific post-camp energy of a child who has been outside in the Texas heat all day and is simultaneously exhausted and unable to stop moving. She was eating a snack at the kitchen table. She said, Mom, that game I played with Eli. I looked at her. The house game, she said. Yes, I said. Did I tell you something important? 6 years old. She had been thinking about this. Not continuously. Children don't carry things the way adults do. But she had returned to it in the way they return to things when she had enough space to formulate the question. Yes, I said. You did. Were you mad? Not at you, I said. Not a little bit at you. She thought about this. Was Daddy in trouble? I looked at my daughter. The specific, careful attention she was giving to this. Wren always gives things her full attention. I said, some things changed because of what you told me. Important things. And the changes were the right changes. And you telling me was the right thing to do. Even though Daddy said it was a surprise? Even though, I said. Wren, when something feels wrong, telling a grown-up you trust is always the right thing. Even if someone tells you to keep it secret. Some secrets are not good secrets. She thought about this seriously. Okay, she said. She finished her snack. Can I have more crackers? Yes, I said. I got her more crackers. Life continued. The divorce was finalized in August, 8 months after a Wednesday evening in the kitchen. Diana had been right about the financial picture. The settlement reflected, not punitively but accurately, the full scope of what Lena Cross had found. The house was mine. The primary financial accounts were restructured. Griffin's business interests were separated with terms that Diana described as appropriate given the circumstances. I did not use the word victory. It is not the right word for the end of an 8-year marriage and the restructuring of a family around a 6-year-old who still doesn't fully understand what happened. The right word is resolution, a design term, the clarity of an image when you increase the resolution. You see more, you see it more precisely. That is what happened. I had the resolution increased against my will on a Wednesday evening in my kitchen. I see more clearly now. Wren is in 1st grade. She has a teacher named Mr. Osei who she thinks is the funniest person in the world, and who I have met at 2 parent evenings, and can confirm is genuinely funny in this specific way that works with 6-year-olds. She sees Griffin on Wednesdays and every other weekend. She comes home from these visits with reports, what they had for dinner, what they did, and what Griffin's new apartment looks like. She told me last month that Griffin's apartment has a drawing she made on the refrigerator. A big one, she said, of all 3 of us. That's nice, I said. He said it's his favorite thing in the apartment, she said. I thought about that. I'm glad, I said. And I meant it. Both things can be true. Griffin is a better father in the specific ways that mattered to Wren than he was a husband in the specific ways that mattered to me. I hold both. I keep moving. Eli came over last week. He and Wren played in the living room for 2 hours. I was in the kitchen, making dinner. I could see them through the doorway. They were playing a different game this time, something involving space exploration and a cardboard box that Wren had converted into a spacecraft with impressive conviction. Eli was the commander. Wren was the scientist. I watched them for a moment, and then I went back to making dinner. The living room is still my living room. The kitchen is still my kitchen. The window between them is still the same window. What I see through it is different now. Not darker, just clearer. The resolution increased. I see the living room as it is, rather than as I assumed it was. That is enough. That is more than enough. I thought about the game for a long time, about what children do when they are trying to understand the world. They observe, they absorb, they reproduce. They take the material the world gives them and they make it into play, because play is serious business when you are 6 or 7 years old and figuring out how things work. They did not know they were telling me something. They were playing a game, and in the playing of it, with the specific, faithful accuracy of children who are excellent observers, they gave me the full picture, or the beginning of it. The beginning was enough. I think about my mother. 27 years of listening carefully to children, understanding that what they say and what they mean are not always the same thing, but are always worth taking seriously. She is right. She has always been right about this. Children are the most honest sources we have, not because they are trying to tell the truth, but because they have not yet learned to hide it. They reproduce what they see, faithfully, completely, without understanding the weight of it, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, what they reproduce is exactly what you needed to see. I still have the document I wrote that Wednesday evening, dated, time-stamped, precise. The first line is Wren's words, transcribed as exactly as I could manage. I keep it because it is a record of the most important Wednesday evening of my life, and because my daughter at 6 years old told me the truth without knowing she was doing it. She is an excellent observer. I hope she never stops. That's the whole story, or the part I'm ready to tell. I want to say something about the game, about the specific thing children do when they play, the faithful reproduction of what they've seen, with a completeness and an accuracy that adults have usually learned to dilute. They don't know what they're showing you. That's not the point. The point is that they show you everything. Every word, every gesture, every detail that seemed small enough to hide. Children are not trying to tell the truth. They are just playing. And sometimes the playing is the truth. If you have a child in your life who is trying to show you a game, pay close attention to the game. Ask where they learned it,
and trust what they tell you, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard. Wren told me something on a Wednesday evening that changed the next year of my life. She was 6 years old. She was playing house. She had no idea, and she was exactly right. I am still in Austin, still in my house, still designing things, still making dinner with the kitchen doorway open to the living room, still watching, still paying attention. That is all. Thanks for listening.